During the time of Jesus, the Jewish leaders, men known as the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes, were the religious authorities of the time. They followed the laws of Moses and believed they understood God's teachings better than anyone else. The people listened to them and followed their words diligently, and that was when Jesus returned back to the town. The leaders saw Jesus as a threat. He was teaching things they didn't like. And he had a way of reaching people's hearts that made them uncomfortable. As Jesus continued his ministry, the Pharisees watched him closely, hoping to find a reason to accuse him. One Sabbath, a man with a shriveled hand came to Jesus for healing. The Pharisees were eager to see what Jesus would do, knowing that it was against their interpretation of the law to work on the Sabbath.
Let us see what he does now.
Will he work today? Isn't that breaking the law of Moses?
I'm sure that he does break the law. We can catch him red-handed. Ha ha!
Jesus called the man forward and asked the Pharisees,
Me? Huh?
Yes, come forward. Is it lawful to do good or to do evil on the Sabbath? To save life or to kill?
The leaders remained silent. Jesus looked around at them with anger and sadness, knowing their hearts were hardened. He told the man,
Stretch out your hand.
And immediately, the man's hand was healed. It was a miracle. Instead of rejoicing in the miracle, the Pharisees left and began plotting with others about how they might kill Jesus.
Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me.
As Jesus continued teaching in the temple, the Jewish leaders became increasingly bold in their attempts to trap him. They approached him and asked,
By what authority are you doing these things?
And who gave you this authority?
Jesus, knowing their hearts, answered them with a question.
I will ask you one thing, and if you want to answer me, I will tell you by what authority I do these things. John's baptism, was it from heaven or from men?
The leaders discussed among themselves. If they said it was from heaven, Jesus would ask why they didn't believe John. But if they said it was from men, they feared the people because everyone believed John was a prophet. Finally, they answered, We don't know. Jesus replied,
Then neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things.
As Jesus continued teaching, the Jewish leaders tried to trap him with tricky questions. They wanted to make him say something wrong so they could arrest him.
Whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours.
One day they asked,
Teacher, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar, the Roman emperor?
They thought that if Jesus said no, he would be in trouble with the Romans. But if he said yes, the people might turn against him because many Jews hated Roman rule. But Jesus saw through their plan. He held up a Roman coin and asked,
Whose image is on this coin?
Caesar's.
He answered,
Then give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God.
The leaders were angry and had no response. One day, Jesus entered the temple in Jerusalem and saw something that deeply troubled him. The temple, which was supposed to be a house of prayer, was filled with money changers and merchants selling animals for sacrifice. They were turning God's house into a marketplace, cheating people out of their money. Jesus made a whip out of cords and drove out the merchants, flipping over their tables.
It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers.
The Jewish leaders were outraged. Who was this man who dared to challenge them in the temple? From that moment, they began to plot how they might stop him. The leaders were determined to stop Jesus. They decided to meet in secret to make plans to arrest him. They needed an accomplice, someone who worked closely with Jesus on their side. It was Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' 12 disciples. He was willing to betray Jesus. The leaders paid him 30 pieces of silver to share the information regarding Jesus' plans. On the night of the Passover, Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter, Paul, and other disciples were waiting a little far away while Jesus prayed. When Jesus returned after his prayers, Judas appeared along with the soldiers to arrest him.
You cheater!
Peter, don't!
But Peter didn't listen. He struck one of the servants of the leaders, cutting off his right ear.
No more of this!
And he touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple guard, and the elders who had come for him,
Am I leading a rebellion that you have come with swords and clubs?
Jesus was taken before the high priest, Caiaphas, and the other leaders. They accused him of blasphemy, claiming he called himself the Son of God. They mocked him, and finally, they brought him before the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, demanding that he be crucified. Though Pilate found no fault in Jesus, the leaders insisted, and the crowd shouted for his crucifixion. Jesus was sentenced to die on a cross, even though he had done nothing wrong. Jesus was nailed to the cross and died. But 3 days later, he rose from the dead, showing his victory over sin and death. Later, he ascended to heaven after teaching his disciples how to spread the word. Through all of this, Jesus showed love and forgiveness, even to those who opposed him. His message was clear: love God and love others, no matter the cost. Long ago, in the ancient and grand city of Babylon, there reigned a powerful and imposing king named Nebuchadnezzar. King Nebuchadnezzar was known throughout the land for his impressive feats of construction and conquest. He had built towering palaces that seemed to touch the sky and had led his armies to victories in distant lands.
I am King Nebuchadnezzar, ruler of Babylon, and the world shall bow before my greatness.
When Israel was under the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, he called into his service young noblemen to be trained in the house of the king for 3 years. Among them were Daniel and 3 men called Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Nebuchadnezzar ordered their names to be changed to identify them with Babylonian names.
From today, your names will be changed too. Daniel will now be called Belshazzar, Hananiah to Shadrach, Mishael to Meshach, and Azariah to Abednego.
But there was a problem. The food served sometimes had been leftover meat served to the idols, and sometimes they were not cleaned properly.
This doesn't look good.
It smells bad.
Daniel, with his quick thinking, said to the king,
Your Majesty, we are honored to serve you, but there's something we need to discuss.
What is it, young ones?
Your Majesty, the food from your table is delicious, but it goes against our beliefs.
King Nebuchadnezzar was taken aback. He looked at the four friends with a mix of surprise and curiosity.
Explain.
We believe in eating simple, healthy food, as our faith teaches us.
We want to prove that even with just vegetables and water, we can be strong and wise.
The king admired their courage and determination.
Very well. You may follow your customs for 10 days. Let's see what happens.
For 10 days, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah stuck to their plan. They ate only vegetables and drank water, and indeed, God blessed their decision. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and stronger than the others who had indulged in the king's food. King Nebuchadnezzar couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the four friends.
You are truly remarkable. Your God has indeed blessed you.
From that day forward, he allowed them to continue eating the food they believed in, and they continued to grow wise and strong, serving their king and God with all their hearts. One day, as the sun cast its golden glow upon the city, King Nebuchadnezzar had a grand idea. He decided to build a colossal statue made entirely of gleaming gold in his own likeness. It would stand a staggering 90 feet tall, a testament to his power and might.
Hear, O people of Babylon, the great King Nebuchadnezzar has decreed that a towering statue of pure gold shall be erected for all to worship.
The statue's construction began immediately, and the people watched in awe as the towering monument took shape. After several months of work, the statue was finished. It stood in the middle of the city with a towering presence.
Behold, the magnificent golden statue of King Nebuchadnezzar, the ruler of all Babylon. When the music plays, all must bow down and worship this symbol of power. Any subject who refused to bow down before the image would be punished by being thrown into a fiery furnace and burnt to death.
While everyone agreed, there were some who did not. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were not only known for their intelligence, but also their unwavering faith in their God. These men could not in good conscience kneel before the image of the Babylonian king.
We serve a mighty God, and we will never bow to an idol made of gold.
No matter what challenge comes our way, our faith remains unshaken.
Play the music.
As the music echoed throughout the magnificent city, thousands upon thousands of people knelt before the towering golden statue, their voices chanting praises to King Nebuchadnezzar.
We bow to King Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue.
But amidst the sea of bowed heads, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego remained standing tall, defying the king's command.
O King Nebuchadnezzar, there are those who defy your decree. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow to your statue.
Upon hearing this, King Nebuchadnezzar's face contorted with rage. He summoned the three friends to his majestic palace, where they stood before the mighty ruler.
Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you dare to defy my command and refuse to worship my statue?
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood tall and brave before the mighty king.
O King Nebuchadnezzar, we will not bow down to your golden statue.
King Nebuchadnezzar's face grew even redder with anger. In those days, a furnace was set up to punish the prisoners. Everyone thrown in would be burnt alive.
Heat the furnace 7 times hotter than ever before. Throw them in.
He commanded his strongest soldiers to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the roaring flames. The 3 friends stayed calm, knowing that God will save them from such a fate as burning to death in the fiery furnace. As the soldiers approached the furnace, the heat was so intense that it scorched their faces. They quickly threw the 3 friends into the fiery furnace. But then, something amazing happened. Instead of being consumed by the flames, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were walking around inside the furnace unharmed. And even more astonishing, there was a 4th figure with them, who looked like the Son of God, protecting them from the heat. The men are all unharmed, as are their clothes, when they step out of the fiery furnace. King Nebuchadnezzar couldn't believe his eyes. He called his advisors.
Is there anything wrong with the furnace? Wasn't it heated enough?
Yes, O king, we did as you commanded.
But I see 4 men walking freely in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the 4th looks like a divine being.
It's indeed a miracle.
Amazed and humbled, King Nebuchadnezzar ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to come out of the furnace. They emerged without a single burn or even the smell of smoke on their clothes. The entire kingdom witnessed the power of the one true God that day.
We are unharmed, O King, for our God has protected us.
Nebuchadnezzar was in tears as he declared,
Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted him. Let it be known throughout the land that the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the one true God.
And so, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego teaches us about the strength of faith, courage, and the power of standing up for what we believe in, no matter the challenges we face.